Hi everyone, I'm Dina with Mills Family Gardening. We live in North Texas, Zone 8A, and in this video we're going to grow sweet potatoes. They're very popular to grow in the south because they love warm weather, and that's what we have. What we did here, we bought organic sweet potatoes at the store, and I'm sure you can use non-organic. I hear that they work just fine. We need to get slips from them, and you can see that these actually started growing little sprouts that will turn into slips as they grow longer. That happened because we kept them in the pantry for a while and I kind of forgot about them. But I'm going to use two ways to grow slips. The first way is the very popular one, is you put some dirt in a container, make sure it has holes in it, and just put sweet potato in it. You don't need to bury it into the soil, but kind of put a little deeper, and then cover it just lightly with the soil, and then I'm gonna make sure that the soil stays moist at all times, and then it should start growing slips. And then the second way is my favorite, paper towel method. I'm going to wet it and make it extra damp because sweet potatoes need that extra dampness. Actually, I'm gonna make it soggy and dripping with water. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay the sweet potato here and simply wrap it in the paper towel and make sure that all of the sweet potato is inside of the paper towel. And then I'm just gonna put it in the Ziploc bag. Close the Ziploc bag, get all the air out of the bag. I'm gonna keep this sweet potato on top of the fridge in the warmest spot. And I think I'll just keep this one outside because our weather has warmed up significantly. It's been in the 90s and it's going to be in the 90s all this week. We'll come back and see which potato sprouts first, and I'll show you what to do next. This is the sweet potato that I started in this container in the dirt, and let me bring it up closer and show you what it looks like. You can see that right here there is a sprout, and there are several of them. Well, let's check on the sweet potato that we have in the Ziploc bag in the paper towel. Let me open it carefully, and when I open it I need to be real careful because the roots have grown through the paper towel. The slips have grown much taller compared to this sweet potato. So I'll wait until we harvest regular potatoes, which will happen at the end of May or beginning of June. And meanwhile, I'm not going to keep this sweet potato in a paper towel because it needs oxygen and sunlight to grow well. If I keep it in a paper towel, the little slips would eventually start rotting and they will die. I'll put it in the dirt in a container and I'll keep it outside because our weather has warmed up significantly. Just make sure your soil is very moist because the sweet potato needs that extra moisture to grow slips well. And I'm going to put sweet potato right in the middle of it. I'm gonna cover it up lightly with the soil. If I cover this whole sweet potato, it's not gonna hurt anything. It will help the sweet potato stay moist. This is what the sweet potato that I put in the soil in this container looks like right now. And this is what the sweet potato that we put in the paper towel looks like right now. It seems like these sweet potato slips have gotten too large. I did not plant them earlier because our raised bed was still occupied with regular potatoes. But we harvested them, and just today we can plant sweet potatoes. I could leave the sweet potato in this container and just let it grow in this container. Eventually it would produce more sweet potatoes, but I want to separate the slips. That way I would get more sweet potatoes. I'm gonna pull it up like that. Here are the roots, and I can see that actually some of them already started growing sweet potatoes. I'm going to separate some of them from this potato, just like that. And I'll separate the slips themselves. They already have good roots on them. And you can see that some of the slips are pretty small, so I'm going to cut them with the sweet potato. And I'm gonna plant them in the soil like that. And this little slip is going to feed off of the sweet potato and keep growing roots. And I'm gonna do the same with these little slips here. I can see that there are actually 2 or 3 of them, so I'm gonna separate them like that, and then plant them in the ground like that. And these old sweet potatoes will go into the compost. I'm planting each slip in a hole and then bury the whole vine, leaving only the leaves on top, so the vine would start rooting and eventually produce tubers. Today is June 17th. It's been 6 days since we planted the sweet potato slips, and they're looking much better. I actually had to put some all-purpose fertilizer in this bed because we put that llama manure just recently and it hasn't had time to break down and start feeding the plants. So I thought it would be good to give the sweet potato slips that boost from the beginning so they would be growing well from the start. Today is November 5th and we're going to harvest our sweet potatoes. Throughout their growing season, I water them a few times with liquid fish fertilizer, some more bloom fertilizer, and also rainwater. And you can see that some of the leaves got chewed on by grasshoppers, but it hasn't stopped those potatoes from growing. Our sweet potato vines bloomed a few times and the blooms were pretty, but it's getting colder by the day and it's time to harvest them. So we're going to remove all the green vines and my daughters are going to help me dig up the potatoes. While we're harvesting the sweet potatoes, we discovered that the long sweet potato vines, they went beyond the raised bed and they started rooting in the ground around the raised bed. And so we discovered that in a few spots like this one, the roots actually started growing sweet potatoes. So we're gonna dig one up. And look at that. We did not even plant any slips and we still have a sweet potato. This one hasn't had the time to form the tubers, but if we left it in the ground longer, then the tubers would certainly grow here. So we used 4 sweet potatoes to grow slips and we planted all the slips we had, and this is what we harvested today. You can see that some of the potatoes are larger and some of them are smaller, and that's okay. We're still gonna use the smaller one. We'll just roast them. So now we're going to cure the sweet potatoes, and for that we're going to keep them in the shade for a few days and make sure they're completely dry. So if there's rain, we're gonna probably put them in the back porch to keep them out of the rain. And also they need to be out of the sun so they wouldn't go green. Like this one started turning green a little bit because it was exposed to the sun. The potatoes have been curing for 6 days, and since we're gonna store them in the same room in the closet in the same condition, there's no point at curing them any longer. So today we're going to put our potatoes in the box unwashed, and for that I'm going to use this cardboard box that I already lined with a newspaper just to keep the dirt from spilling on the floor. I'm going to pick the best looking potatoes, the biggest, uncut and undamaged, like this one for example, and I'm gonna put a single layer of all these potatoes. Now we're gonna do the second layer of potatoes, and for that I'm going to cover the first layer with another piece of newspaper. We're gonna put the best looking potatoes on top. The reason why we're putting the best looking undamaged potatoes on the bottom is because they will store longer. Hopefully they will store for 6 months. And the potatoes like this one that were cut, they won't last as long. They will rot sooner, and so we need to put them on the top layer so we can use them faster. And we'll do another layer and put another piece of newspaper. We'll just put the rest of the potatoes on top. Sweet potatoes are a relatively easy crop to grow, and we're hoping to grow them again next year from the same sweet potatoes. We had a nice harvest of regular potatoes earlier this year from the same raised bed, and if you would like to watch that video, we'll put a link. And that's all for now, and we'll see you all in our next video. Bye-bye!